Education under the Republic of Cameroon from 1984 to present. The history of Cameroon is important in understanding the evolution of education system in Cameroon. First, Cameroon was colonized by the Germans and after the First World War became a trustee for the League of Nations under the rule of British and French governments. This led to the development of a dual system of education that exists to present. In November 1982, Paul Biya succeeded Ahmadu Ahidjo after the latter's resignation as the second president of Cameroon. This period of the educational development in Cameroon could be considered as a transitional point in the history of Cameroon education. The present educational system of Cameroon, like that of many African colonized nations, can be said to have originated from a consciously elitist colonial purpose. Cameroon being a bilingual country with two different educational subsystems made it venerable in setting up a harmonized educational system. English is the main medium of instruction in the Anglophone section, while French is the medium of instruction in French section. During this period, the appellation Ministry of National Education had faded away and now called the Ministry of Education, which is subdivided into four main sectors: Ministry of Basic Education, Ministry of Secondary Education, Ministry of Technical and Vocational Training, and Ministry of Higher Education. We also have other ministries: Ministry of Sport and Physical Education, Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation. All these ministries are controlled by ministers appointed by the President of the Republic, and they control separate budgets and ensure effective development of education in Cameroon. The 1998 Law of Education. The National Forum on Education in 1995 inspired the recommendation of Law Number 98/004 of 14 April 1998, organizing education in Cameroon, laid down the guidelines or the general legal framework of education in Cameroon. This educational law remains so far the main document for educational policy in Cameroon and applies mainly to nursery, primary, secondary, grammar and technical education as well as teacher training. Section 10 in its general provision states that education shall be a top priority of the nation. In Section 3, it states that the state shall institute bilingualism in all levels of education as a factor of national unity. The law further states that the general purpose of education shall be to train children for their intellectual, physical, civic, and moral development and their smooth integration into the society, bearing in mind prevailing economic, sociocultural, political, and moral factors. Based on ownership, there exist three criteria of levels of education and skills acquired: the government of public schools, denominational or mission schools, and lay private schools. Government schools are also called state schools. They are created and controlled by the government. Government schools in Cameroon are either created by the Ministry of Basic Education, Secondary Education, and the Ministry of Higher Education based on the type and levels of the school. Denominational schools are mission schools owned and controlled by various religious bodies or denominations such as the Presbyterian, Baptists, and Anglicans, other Protestant churches, and Muslims. Lay private schools are owned and controlled by private individuals who is the sole proprietor or a group of individuals in partnership to create schools. Both denominational and lay private schools provide for the construction and running of the schools and are directly controlled by educational secretaries appointed by hierarchy of the various bodies. There exist several types of schools, which are general education schools include primary, secondary, and higher institutions which provides both general and not specific type of education. Comprehensive schools provide wide range of general and technical education. Technical schools offer technical or specific crafts such as woodworks, motor mechanics, electricity, secretarial duties, building construction. Vocational or professional schools, which are specialized institutions that train a person for a particular profession or vocation, such as teachers training colleges, medical institutions, seminaries. It is the policy of the government of Cameroon to fight against illiteracy and ignorance, which retards development. It is for this reason that the government supports and promotes education at all levels and in all stages. The organization of schools. The organization of schools in Cameroon depends on the type of schools as well as the level of the schools. Generally, in secondary and high schools, the administration consists the following. The central administration, which is made up of principal, the vice principal, senior discipline master, chief of works, the bursar, and stores accountant. Heads of department exist in each school, divided into departmental heads of subjects, which coordinate the activities of the department as well as its needs. The teaching staff comes next, which constitute the key players of the school. They inculcate knowledge into a child to become a responsible citizen tomorrow, which of course is the job of the teacher. The auxiliary staff that are non-teaching staff include school technicians like drivers, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and guards. School prefects constitute the student governing body. They are elected by the students' body with the approval of the school administration. The academic year starts in September and ends in mid-June. The school academic year is divided into three main terms, that is, the first term, which runs from September to December, the second term from January to March, and the third term runs from April to June. The organization of schools in both subsystems of education has some differentials which were cultivated from their various colonial masters during the colonial era. The English subsystems now have a 6 to 5 to 2 schooling formation, which is contrary to the 6 to 4 to 3 schooling formation in French Cameroon. At all levels of secondary education, every child dressed in uniform. The nursery education. The nursery education in Cameroon is aimed at preparing pupils for elementary school. Cameroonians have increased in childhood education. Parents do so by sending their children to kindergarten education at the age of 4 years old. In the English-speaking region, kindergarten education is known as nursery school, while in the French-speaking Cameroon, it is called école maternelle. It should be noted that education at this level is not compulsory in Cameroon. The nursery school education is administered by the Ministry of Basic Education. Objectives of nursery education. 1. To foster the child's overall development in all aspects, psychomotor, social, emotional, and cognitive. To prepare the child for primary education. Policy orientation in nursery education. Decree number 72/281 of June 1972 brought nursery education under the control of the Ministry of National Education. The Ministry of National Education produced a national curriculum or syllabus which began to be implemented in all schools in 1989. New policies that formally recognized two separate subsystems of education in Cameroon, as a 1998 law. Primary education. Primary education in Cameroon is compulsory and has witnessed so many changes so far. Primary education is 6 years in the Anglophone and Francophone subsystems. In the Anglophone subsystem, the 6 years education is leading to the first school leaving certificate and a common entrance examination, while in the Francophone subsystem, the 6 years leads to certificat d'études premières élémentaires. The government and the religious denominations like the Roman Catholic, Presbyterian, and private individuals run most of the primary schools. The significant difference is that there are no tuition fees at the government school, though parents still buy uniforms, textbooks, and take care of other expenses. The primary education in Cameroon is being controlled by Ministry of Basic Education. The objectives of primary education. 1. Instill respect and love for own country and the need for harmonious coexistence. 2. To develop awareness and appreciation of the role of technology in national development. Policy orientation for primary education. President Paul Biya, in the Youth Day address to the nation on February 2000, declared that primary education in government schools will be provided to students free of charge. The revised 1996 Constitution provides that primary education shall be compulsory. Paul Biya, by the free primary education policy, wanted Cameroon to meet the second Millennium Development Goal of achieving universal primary education by the year 2015, but this policy was implemented in February 2011. Secondary education. The Ministry of Secondary Education is responsible for dictating state policies in grammar and technical education, setting programs of studies and syllables and assessments of secondary education in Cameroon. This sector is divided into two cycles in the two subsystems. In the Anglophone subsystem, the first cycle of secondary education lasts for 5 years and leads to the General Certificate of Education ordinary level. The high school, which is the second cycle, offers 2-year course leading to the General Certificate of Education advanced level. In the Francophone system, the first cycle is 4 years of secondary education leading to the brevet d'études du premier cycle and baccalauréat at the second cycle, which is a 3-year course. Objectives of secondary education. 1. To provide education that will serve as a foundation into specialized skills. 2. Identify individual talents and develop them into a responsible and socially well-adjusted persons. Policy orientation for secondary education. Article 15 of Law Number 98/004 of 14 April 1998 on the orientation of education in Cameroon meets our firm determination to engage learners in the culture of civil values to guarantee a Cameroon proud of its diversities and rich cultural heritage. Technical and vocational education. The Ministry of Technical and Vocational Education is responsible for technical institute in Cameroon and in charge of vocational and non-formal education. Students learn professional traditional courses for 4 years and get tested with CAP examination. Second cycle of technical section, lycée technique, has a duration of 3 years, which run from Form 5, lower state to upper state, and the certificate obtained is back in a francophone technical secondary education. Objectives of technical and vocational education. 1. It provides students with skills necessary for self-reliance. 2. To increase understanding of technology. 3. To provide a trained workforce for various employment sectors. Teachers training education. Teacher training education refers to the policies, procedures, and provisions designed to prospective teachers with the knowledge, attitude, and skills they require to perform their tasks effectively in classrooms, schools, and wider community. We have teacher training colleges like ENS Bambili, NSED Bambili, ENS Yaoundé, ENS Maroua. Policy orientation in teachers' education. The primary objective of the current plan, Décembre de stratégie du secteur de l'éducation et de formation 2013 to 2020, is the achievement of quality universal primary education. This objective aligns with the National Strategy for Growth and Employment goals of providing the production system with human capital capable of supporting economic growth. Higher education. The Ministry of Higher Education monitors higher education institutions in Cameroon. The Ministry of Higher Education works in collaboration with other ministries to ensure that educational policies are productive in Cameroon. Objectives of higher education. 1. The quest for excellence in all domains. 2. To promote science, culture, and progress. 3. To promote bilingualism. Policy orientation of higher education in Cameroon. Law number 2001/005 of 16 April 2001 on the orientation of higher education in Cameroon. It defines the orientation of higher education in tiers of teaching, research, bilingualism, and cooperation. Decree number 2005/383 of 17 October 2005 on new university governance lays down the financial regulations applicable to the university. Decree number 92/74 of 13 April 1992, complemented by Decree number 93/034 of 19 January 1993, created 5 new universities all over the territory. Sport and Physical Education. The Minister of Sport and Physical Education is responsible for the elaboration and implementation of government policy in matters of sport and physical education. The ministry coordinates all physical education and sport activities in the country. Objectives of sport and physical education. Their main objectives are to guide, coordinate, and promote quality physical education, training, and sports to all persons in the country for national integration, development, and individual advancement. Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation. Their objectives. 1. To develop an inclusive knowledge. 2. The valuing of indigenous knowledge. 3. Creating a bridge between research and the business world by strengthening public-private